tonight at 5 o'clock in the killing of Rayshard Brooks at an Atlanta Wendy's 2 years ago. You're looking live where any moment now we are expecting to hear from the Brooks family. They will address the media about the decision today from the special prosecutor to not charge the officers responsible with Rayshard's death. Today we learned those officers, Garrett Rolfe and Devin Brosnan, are still employed by the APD. They're on administrative duty. That shooting, just to refresh your memory, happening at a Wendy's on University Avenue just weeks after George Floyd's death in 2020 in Minnesota, at the height of the summer social justice protest movement. And that body cam footage that we were just looking at would be used as a jumping off point for nights of protest across Atlanta.
Well, now both officers will undergo recertification and training with the potential to rejoin the Atlanta police force. CBS 46 has live team coverage. We've had it all afternoon for you. Let's begin with Zach Summers. Zach, the special prosecutor ruling that Brooks' death was justified and reasonable, the use of force by these two officers, the special prosecutor said that was justified.
Yeah, this team of prosecutors, some former, but here at the prosecuting attorney's office in Morrow, they scoured through a lot of video, APD body cam, cell phone footage, surveillance video from that Wendy's to come to make today's decision what they came down to. They also looked into police policies and other files for an hour, more than an hour rather. Pete Skandalakis and his team at the prosecuting attorney's office laid out the case involving officers Garrett Rolfe and Devin Brosnan in the June 2020 death of Rayshard Brooks. Skandalakis first explained the climate of the city at the time. There were protests, some of which had turned violent in response to the police killing of George Floyd. But the special prosecutor pointed out that the exchange between Brooks and the APD officers started out cordial. Brooks agreed to a field sobriety test. When Officer Rolfe tried arresting him for DUI, that's when it turned violent. There was a struggle. Brooks got hold of one of the officer's tasers, pointed it at Rolfe as he ran away. Rolfe fired back 3 times, hitting Brooks twice. That exchange happening less than 2 seconds. And under Georgia law, the special prosecution team determined Rolfe was justified in the use of force.
In the heat of the moment with an officer, what's going through an officer's mind, Officer Rolfe may not have understood that that taser had been fired twice. That would not be something that he was processing. And because he's not processing that, it still is a deadly weapon. Officer Brosnan may have also thought that, and not Brosnan, Rolfe, I apologize. But when you're talking about human reaction, heat of the moment, dynamic situation, what you process and what you can remember, according to Dr. Lewinsky, are two completely different things.
And at this hour, we're hearing from both officers' attorneys, both expressing the elation of today's decision. They're thankful. They're thankful to the community, those who have supported them. Officer Rolfe's attorney saying that they hope that any protest will remain peaceful. Both officers, though, asking for their privacy at this time. For now, live in Morrow, Zach Summers, CBS 46 News.
Zach, thank you. CBS 46's Patrick Quinn continuing our team coverage from the Wendy's, or at least the site of the Wendy's on University Avenue where Brooks was shot to death by police. So, Patrick, that restaurant was a major protest area a couple of years ago, and eventually it was burned down.
That's exactly right. It's definitely a different scene we're seeing today. Here we are 2 years after the death here that started all of this, the investigation that we're now talking about. But let's push in just a little bit, and you can see Rayshard Brooks. While the Wendy's is gone, there are many messages memorializing him this evening, and it's become a emotional hotspot for so many supporters and demonstrators over the years. They held a rally in honor of Rayshard Brooks right here just 2 months ago in June, the 2-year anniversary of his death. Now, Brooks died after being shot in this parking lot June 2020. This became a hotbed of emotions. It was chaotic as protesters called for systemic change to the policing system. Demonstrators set the Wendy's on fire a day after Brooks was shot, and it was demolished soon after. We talked with some in the area today about today's ruling, about the special prosecutor's decision. They were outraged that the officers will not face charges.
It's never no justice. it's really never no justice. And in our black community to these days, it really hurts. It really hurts to never see no justice when our black men is really out here getting killed, you know? And you can tell by the video, the man was running for his life. He wasn't trying to hurt nobody.
And to that point, special prosecutor said it really all came down to when Brooks was running away and had that taser in his hand and turned and pointed it at an officer. And it was in that moment that the officer, Rolfe, fired his weapon, and the special prosecutor today said with that taser pointed at the officer, that gave a reasonable cause for the officer to fire his weapon. And the special prosecutor went on to say that anything can be used as a deadly weapon. A taser in this case can be used as a deadly weapon, but as you're hearing, many people in the area do not agree with today's ruling. We will stay on this and gather more reaction from this area that, as you remember, was just hotly contested just 2 years ago. Live from South Atlanta tonight, Patrick Quinn, CBS 46 News.
Thank you, Patrick. Well, these two officers, they were charged in 2020 with lightning speed by the previous Fulton County District Attorney, Paul Howard. CBS 46 investigative reporter Rachel Polanski has a breakdown now on how unusual it was to charge these officers so quickly. Rachel. All right. Obviously. Hi, Rachel.
All right, and we are hearing right now that the press conference being held by Rayshard Brooks' family is about to get underway, so let's take you right there.
Clients who have been the victims of police brutality. And some of the best advice I ever got was from Andrew Young, who told me, never get out the fight and speak up when people won't speak. And today's decision, it's not about the finding. It's about the process. Because what we have now seen, the entire world has seen, is one finding from a district attorney, pictures, exhibits, breakdowns of videos, finding guilt, finding them at fault. And then today, we watch, as a world, as a community, another district attorney or prosecutor finding a totally different result from the same facts. And all of you can understand, no matter what you look like, how that's confusing. How is that possible? And we hear the veiled comments of, oh, the first investigation was done for political reasons, but you can't prove that. We could say the same thing about today. But we won't do that. We won't be that disrespectful to the special prosecutor. So the confusion looms. And what we also try and look at as a law firm, because we have that responsibility, is just the facts. The facts that actually matter. Yes, there was a fight. They went through it today. There was a very bad confrontation. No person in this country should fight with police officers. No one, ever. Because during that fight, they were justified in using deadly force, 100%. While he was on top of them, they didn't know if he was reaching for a gun or whatever. They could have used deadly force, and I would have backed any officer that did it. But they did not. They did not. They chose not to when they were justified. But they decided to use lethal force as a man was running away 19 feet away. And the key important thing in that is not just that officer deciding that I'm about to take a life when I don't have to. Is the key thing that the special prosecutor said himself today, which is the confusing part.
In the heat of the moment, when an officer was going through an officer's mind, Officer Rolfe may not have understood that taser had been fired twice. That would not be something that he was processing. And because he's not processing that, it still is a deadly weapon.
Well, what the officer knew or did not know is not the law. At that point, what the special prosecutor confirmed today is it wasn't a deadly weapon when he was killed. That's from their words, not ours. And getting into the mind of the officer what should have or what he knew or didn't know, All we're asking is that the community resolves these situations when it's a close call and it goes to a grand jury, which my law partner is going to get more in depth about. Letting the people decide. That's what the family expected in this situation when you had one prosecutor say one thing, and we already knew what the decision was going to be today. And letting the people decide it. So was it wrong? Yes. Did he have to take his life? No. At the point that he fired the weapon, was he immediately in danger for his life of something that is argued about? Is it deadly? Is it not? What if it was mace? Could he have killed him then? So we're heartbroken, confused, but not angry. No person out there should be angry. This isn't a time for unrest or division. This isn't a time to accuse every officer out there of being a bad cop, because that's just not true. There are phenomenal police officers out there in APD and across this country, people we depend on every day for our lives. But we have a responsibility to speak up when something wrong has occurred. So we're destroyed by the announcement today. And we'll continue our fight in civil court, because that seems to be the only place that we can get justice, possibly, depending on the city of Atlanta and its leadership. And I'll let my law partner, Justin Miller, elaborate on the case. He has talked to Tamika Miller and let you know what she has said.
Good afternoon. All right, let's just break this down for a second. 2 police officers lost the fight. You saw it on the district attorney's breakdown of why the special district attorney's breakdown on why this is happening, why they did not charge these officers. 2 police officers lost the fight. Now, is losing a fight a reason enough for Rayshard Brooks to have lost his life? That's the question. You lost the fight. There are 100 other tools at your disposal that you can use as a police officer to catch a suspect that's fleeing. They have helicopters. They have other police officers. They have K9 units. They have cars. They have everything. That is their job, to catch people who run. Rayshard Brooks had a taser that was spent. In his hand, he had a useless piece of plastic. The officer, they say, didn't know, and he was moving too fast, and in the heat of the moment, you can't tell what's going on. Well, in the heat of the moment, if you can't decide what's going on, you don't need to shoot someone in the back when they're 19 feet in front of you. This is what we already knew they were going to say. They didn't say anything new. They didn't show us anything different. They showed us in detail that he won the fight. Okay, should he have been fighting with the police? Absolutely not. And like Chris said, at that time, if they had killed him, we wouldn't all be here today. But they didn't. He won the fight and he tried to get away. And they felt whatever way they felt, not even they, I'm sorry, Officer Rolfe felt whatever way Officer Rolfe felt, and decided to shoot him in the back. Whatever else it is, whatever else happened before, he was shot in the back, 19 feet away. Now, we have seen over the last few years school shooters, mass shooters, people shooting up churches. Many of these people were taken into custody without incident. They definitely were not killed. So, how is it that some of these people who shoot and kill many, many, many people can get taken in without incident? But Rayshard Brooks, who beat up 2 police officers, which is bad, we all know that is bad, who is running down Metropolitan Avenue, they went into his toxicology report. They said he had this in his system and that in his system and that in his system, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you have a guy who you're saying is drunk, he's on drugs, and he's running away from you. So you can't catch a drunk guy on drugs running down Metropolitan Avenue. You have to shoot him in the back. But people who kill 10 and 20 people, they can be taken in without incident. We all know this is ridiculous. Why are we letting them tell us that this is okay? Because it's not. Let's talk about the drugs. They went into detail at the very end about the drugs that were in his system, the drugs that were in his car. Why did they go into that? Because they wanted to sound like he was a hulking threat. He was a huge, drugged up guy who beat them up and they had no choice but to kill him. That's not true. Here's a choice. Take your L. Then use all the tools at your disposal to go find him. Lock him up. Let the criminal justice process do its job. They didn't do that. A jury should decide this case. That's the bottom line. Not 6 people who we don't know who they are. They were asked a question earlier. Were there any black people in this decision-making process? Now, the answer to that question surprised me because, not because I didn't know, because there were no black people, but because I didn't know who the other 4 people were. So, were they a representative jury of Fulton County? Were they a jury of Officer Ross' peers? A jury of people like Rayshard Brooks? Absolutely not. And when it's that close to call, right? We've been here for 2 years. They have been deciding if they're going to prosecute this for 2 years. When it's that close to call, you let a jury decide. That's why we have a jury system in America. But today, we did not get a jury. We did not get a choice. The people of Fulton County didn't get to decide whether or not this was right or if this was wrong. And that in and of itself is wrong. When you have to break down a video by the millisecond, calling in experts to tell you what they see here, and then a millisecond later, this is what I think I see here, and this is what they think they see there. That is the precise reason you need a jury and a trial, and that's why we have this system where you can go in and you can present your evidence, and the other side can present their evidence, and then a jury makes a decision as to what the truth is. But in this case, that didn't happen, and we don't know exactly why that didn't happen. The only thing we can go on is what they said. And what they said is that they took all of the information they had, and this is the decision they made. Respectfully, a jury should decide this case. Rayshard Brooks was absolutely in the wrong. Absolutely in the wrong. He should not have been drinking. He should not have fought those police officers. None of that should have happened. He should have been in jail. He should not be dead. I spoke to his wife today. His wife, they have lovely, beautiful young daughters. He has a son that's a little bit older. I spoke to her today, and she was in tears. She could barely talk to me. And people will say, well, this man was on drugs, and this man was drunk, and that doesn't matter. This woman lost a husband. These children lost a father, and that's important. And I think sometimes we get into the millisecond of who did what, who took this, and not this family lost a father and they deserve a jury trial. The children deserve to be able to see it. The mother deserves to be able to see it. And now they won't have that choice. They won't have that chance. They were robbed of that chance, and that's unfair. So we understand the process. We are lawyers. We do this every day. We understand the process. We respect Pete. We respect Danny Porter. We respect Fonnie Willis. Everyone involved in this situation. We know them. We respect them. They are good lawyers. We are not saying they are not. However, in this situation, we believe that they got it wrong because a Fulton County jury will not have the opportunity to hear this case.